Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and welcome to Episodic Adventures. And we are finally here at the last two episodes of Batman Caped Crusader, season 1 from Amazon Prime and Warner Brothers. Now, everything throughout the season has kind of built up to these last two episodes. As I've mentioned, if you've watched the previous episodes of Episodic Adventures, Harvey Dent's character has made various cameos throughout the course of the season. The same with Barbara Gordon, she's been heavily involved. Of course, Detective Montoya, the two crooked cops, Bullock and Frask. And, everything's led up to these last two episodes where it all kind of comes together. So, of course, Bullock and Frask, they basically are dirty cops that are in the pocket of Rupert Thorne. And, the last episode we saw Harvey Dent, basically the episode didn't involve him, but the very last part of it did, where there was this campaign that he was running to, become, the district attorney of the whole of Gotham City. And at the end of that episode, he unfortunately was scarred in the face via acid being poured into his face by one of Rupert Thorne's men, because he wouldn't take the bribe off of him, which was to basically throw out some case against one of his henchmen. And that's where the last episode ended off, and now we are up to episode 9. And episode 9 is, of course, The Killer Inside, which this episode felt very similar in many ways to the episode where we were introduced to Two-Face in Batman the animated series. Of course, in that episode where we are introduced to Two-Face, he is created via, he's running along a walkway on a bridged walkway in some chemical factory, where there's an accident, there's an explosion, and he's affected by that, and it takes half his face away. But with this one, it goes back to I guess comic book lore, where he's attacked and he's visibly, has the acid hiding his face, and it, disintegrates half his face, which must be a traumatizing experience. And this episode picks up right after that episode. So let's crack on and let's talk a little bit about the episode. So, The Killer Inside Me. In the aftermath of his assault, Dent loses his mayoral bid and is left with half of his face permanently scarred when he begins to grow insecurities about his accident and disfigurement. Bruce attempts to cheer him up with a night on the town, but a paranoid Dent has an outburst in a restaurant. Alfred scolds Bruce for his poor attempts at getting through to him. Craving justice against those who wronged him, Dent goes on a violent spree throughout Gotham, taking out several of Thorne's men. And this is the premise of this episode. So, you feel really badly for Harvey Dent, and he's just a man that has, he's a very strong personality. He's a man who, knew what he wanted. He knew what, he was going after, and that was all taken away from him. And so you do see the slow decline from this very confident, very strong individual basically start to, succumb to his paranoia and start to succumb to, what the accident that's dwelled him in, the disfigurement. And the first opening is this nightmare sequence where he's standing at a podium giving this speech for the mayoral campaign. And the audience members are looking at him in disgust, and you can hear the voices saying, what's happened to his face? And he slowly, you see him start to change from this confident individual to now this very nervous wreck. And he wakes up from his nightmare. He's in his apartment, which is, just, being left, to rot, basically. There's newspapers, there's food cartons, there's candies in his vest, his shorts. And, he gets very angry when he looks at the television and he sees who's now running for to become the new mayor of Gotham. And he calls him he basically says he's a two-faced rat for going behind his back, which he hasn't. Obviously, he's dropped out and he's now taken his place. And it's somebody that worked on his campaign. And then throughout the episode, you see Bruce Wayne, who is desperately trying to build him back up, trying to get him out there. But the way he's doing it, it's like a tough love approach. He's trying to deliver tough love, and Alfred tries to explain to Bruce Wayne that Harvey Dent is not the same man he was once before. He's been through a terrible ordeal. He's been through a horrendous accident. How can he be the same man? He needs, psychiatric help. He needs counselling. He needs somebody to step in and to be kind of that anchor for him. But how Bruce Wayne's going about it is the wrong way. And you remember, this show is set in between. It has like the 90s, 30s, the 1960s, no vibe to it. So, and this is a younger Batman that basically hasn't had the experience, and he's learning as he progresses and goes on. And it's nice to see that, moment between Bruce Wayne, and even when he's Batman and Alfred butt heads and have this, issue. And in the end, Harvey Dent as he's progressing and moving down into the Two-Face persona, when he finally loses it and he goes after the man that threw the acid in his face and he tortures his apartment to watch him burn to death. It's really a dark turn for him, and it's a real dark, version. Probably I know in the comic books he's probably been very dark at times and showcased how crazy he can get, but in the animated world, especially in this series, I think it's the darkest form of Two-Face we've seen within the animated shows. I love Batman the animated series, but one thing I will say about Batman Caped Crusader, where obviously there was some dark-toned element storytelling in the animated show, as well as the fun superhero kiddie-friendly episodes. This whole show felt more serious from the first episode right up to the last episode. And, Rupert Thorne, he's being targeted, and we see, how that goes about. We see how Bullock and Frask, they basically get involved. Barbara Gordon, she wants to represent Harvey Dent and, protect him. Batman is, trying to, stop his friend from doing some horrendous mistakes. In the end, though, when all's said and done, you do see, Harvey Dent come to after he has this massive, rage and goes on this massive killing spree. He does eventually, come back down, and he does then regrets and realizes what they do, and he goes away willingly with the police. And this episode ended where Barbara decides she wants to represent Harvey Dent in his case. And obviously Rupert Thorne still not pleased with everything that's went down, especially the fact that Two-Face invaded his actual home and threatened the life of his son. and it's just a really good, strong, pre-end of the series episode that really, ended on another cliffhanger and also delivered like a much in-depth, much, scoped episode compared to the other ones, because it had been building up to this from the very, I guess, first episode when you first meet Harvey Dent. As for the design of Harvey Dent in Two-Face, obviously everyone got used to the new Two-Face, which was, he was African American and he had, the blue, like, scarred face and the white hair on one side. They go back to format, I guess, back to the Harvey Dent in the Two-Face from the original comic, where the scar side of his face, which for me isn't a complete 50-50, split, it definitely looks more like organic and more like a real scar, and looks more like they've tried to make his look more grounded and realistic this time around than maybe like, a comic book / like animated style that really like brings out the grotesqueness in like a cartoony kind of, animated style, where this, yes, it's animation, but they've done it in a way where it feels realistic and feels organic, and that Harvey Dent is somebody you could actually see walking around. The voice cast in this episode was fantastic. Of course, Hamish does an amazing job as always as Batman. I think he really has taken on this role and is doing justice and really paying tribute to Kevin Conroy, Hamish Linklater, the actor who voices Two-Face, which is Direct Bada. I'm sorry if I butchered his name. I think he was a great choice as Two-Face in Harvey Dent. You can definitely, feel the anger in his voice. You can definitely feel the pain in his voice. So yes, I really like this episode, and if I had to rate this episode, I would probably rate this 7 out of 10. Because even though it is a good episode, there is some things that feel missing from things that I've loved about the original animated series. So the next episode is a direct follow-up, and it is called The Savage Knight, if that's right. The Savage Knight is episode 10. I think I've got that right. I cannot even read the poster there. I'll just quickly go down. It is it the Savage Knight? Yes, Savage Knight. I got that right. So Savage Knight is directly follows on. So Barbara's approached Harvey Dent and says, I want to represent you. He says, no, you can't. She tricks him with his coin and makes it land on heads, and he accepts her help. Of course, because of what went down in the previous episode in the mansion at Rupert Thorne's home with his son, he basically is like, no, I'm not letting this guy live. And so he sets out a plot basically to get Harvey Dent wiped out once and for all. So the episode is as follows. Barbara explains to Dent that she is willing to help him, insisting that he was led astray. Meanwhile, Thorne's men, Bullock and Flask, I'm saying Fisk, it's Flask, because I'm thinking of Kingpin. That's why I'm thinking of Fisk. So Flash seeks revenge on Dent, prompting Barbara and Batman to establish a form of contact between each other and join forces with each other, Jim and Montoya, to protect him so he can testify in court. Amidst the fight at the docks, however, things go awry. So yes, so basically Dent has the opportunity to get rid of Rupert Thorne once and for all if he testifies in court. And so it's a game of cat and mouse. Basically, you've got the team of Montoya, Batman, Barbara, and Jim Gordon, against, Flask, Bullock, and Rupert Thorne and his men, and it all culminates at the docks when, there's a car chase that end up lost at the docks, and you have Flask and Bullock. And this is also a coming to, this is like an aha moment, a light bulb moment as well for Bullock, because throughout the show, you've seen these two dirty cops like going around basically screwing other people over. One night episode, we've seen Firebug get pushed out of a window and meet his untimely end. And that was thanks to Flask and Bullock. And that was to make them look like heroes during this terrible situation to get in charge of the newly put together task force to take down Batman. And so the crooked cops, the bad as they come. But when it comes to Flask, he basically is the brains and Bullock is the brawns. And there's a scene in this episode where Harvey Dent is in a car, and basically he's saying, "Oh, I always thought you were the brains of the outfit," to Bullock. And then he realizes, and he basically explains to kind of get a wedge between Flask and Bullock that, guess what? Flask is using you. Your hands are on everything. So if they ever get caught, it'll be Bullock's fingerprints. It'll be his hands on everything, and it'll probably make Flask get away with everything and get away scot-free. So that kind of drives a wedge between the two of them, which also plays on how Dent can escape and stuff like that, and go to, Barbara, Jim, Montoya, and Batman have this opportunity to protect Dent before he gets to court. Of course, Rupert Thorne's men are on the hunt for Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face. And when it gets to the dock scene, it's basically a throwdown between Thorne's men, Bullock, Flask, Harvey Dent, Barbara, and of course when Batman shows up. And Harvey Dent, there is times where he wants to go into that rage mode. He wants to try and go after Bullock, Flask, and Harvey's men, and Thorne's men, but of course he knows he can't. He needs to try and lay low, because it's basically his evidence in the court case is what's going to bring down Rupert Thorne. And unfortunately, as things progress, there's a situation with Barbara where she is about to be shot, but luckily Harvey Dent is there to save the day and protects her from the bullet fire, but is shot himself. This is where we also see a moment with Alfred and Batman throughout the episode, where there's still tension between the two of them. And Alfred's just explaining, not everything is going to go your way. You want justice, you want peace, you're trying to bring it the hard way, but sometimes the hard way isn't going to work. Sometimes justice won't prevail, and sometimes the outcome isn't going to be the way you want it to be, and you have to accept that. And these are the kind of things Alfred's trying to drain into this younger Bruce Wayne's head, and this tension between them. And throughout the season, you always got Bruce Wayne going, "Thank you, Pennyworth," and "Yes, Pennyworth," or "Get me this, Pennyworth." He never actually refrains to call him Alfred. And as this episode progresses, after the, Harvey Dent is shot, Batman, when it's starting to rain, it's Flask who's the last one standing with going against Batman, and Batman picks up a gun after seeing Harvey Dent has been shot. And Flask is, saying, "You can't shoot me, I'm a goddamn cop," when he's trying to protect Harvey Dent. And you hear the gunshot, but you don't actually say anything. The next thing you know, you see Flask cowering on the floor, and you see the bullets around him where Batman is shot around him. He hasn't actually shot him. And, the next scene you see is Harvey Dent lying on the floor with Barbara around him. And unfortunately, and this shocked me because this show is definitely not going to go like Batman the Animated Series, where each show is episodic. You might have a 2-part episode where there's a part 1 and part 2, but generally in the animated show from the 90s, every episode would be self-contained, or you'd have an episode that would end on a cliffhanger. A couple of episodes later or a season later, they will pick up kind of a story, but still in like the episodic format with the same villain. But with this show, what they've done with this Batman, the Caped Crusader, they've probably done this thinking, well, if this doesn't work, we've done a one and done, and we've give it a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so they end this show with the death of Harvey Dent, who, with him now gone, Rupert Thorne basically is going to get away scot-free. And it's a sad moment. I never seen that coming because, like I said, I thought they would have, with the way it was going, I thought that Harvey Dent would get to the courthouse and would, get Rupert Thorne hide in jail. But that is not the case. So it just shows you this show, nobody is safe. Anybody could go. And especially killing off a character as popular as Two-Face / Harvey Dent. And the final sequences of this show are very strong. So after the death of Harvey Dent, Bruce Wayne goes back to the Batcave and he has one final conversation with Alfred, aka Pennyworth, where he keeps calling him Pennyworth. And Alfred shown remorse for the death of Harvey Dent and says basically what I said before, not everything's going to go your way. There will be tragedies if you continue to go down this path as the Batman. Not every person can be saved during your fight for justice. And Bruce Wayne, Batman, admits the error of the ways that, his tough love approach and how he handled the situation didn't work out the way he wanted it to. And basically, it's a learning experience for him as the young Batman. And he says thank you to Alfred, but he goes to go thank you Pennyworth, but he finally says in the last moment, thank you, thank you, Alfred. He actually calls him Alfred. He stops himself from saying Pennyworth halfway through, and then he finally says Alfred. And that's like the beginning of the bond and their relationship fully forming, instead of Bruce Wayne having this wall up throughout the show with him. So that was a great moment. The next moment in the end episode is you've got Rupert Thorne sitting in his penthouse in Gotham. He's talking to somebody saying, I've gotten away with it, basically. Nothing's going to take me down. Gotham will belong to me. The next thing you know, his window breaks and he gets swiped across the ear. His ear's bleeding. And when you look at the wall, it's a bat blade. And when he looks up, you can see that in the distance on the building in the background there, Batman standing and watching him. So basically, he's fired a shot at Rupert Thorne and said, I know who you are, I know what you are, and I'm coming for you. And I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. Which was a very powerful scene and a very powerful shot with him and Rupert Thorne. And the final scene, they had to leave it with a cliffhanger case there was a second season, which there is. You go to some, little shed, some little like rundown building / shed in the middle of, I guess, some sort of work yard. And as it zooms in to this building, you see like a light outside. You see bodies of men and women in a row tied to a chair, all with these horrendous looking smiles and really grotesque faces. And you can hear as the camera zooms somebody laughing in this manic way, like this crazy, painful, manic way. And then it zooms into another male in a chair who has been injected with some sort of liquid, and his face and his laughter starts twisting and turning till eventually he has this perfect smile on his face, evil looking perfect smile on his face, and he dies and tilts over. And as the camera had zoomed around the other bodies and the other men and women, and you had half smiles, you had crooked smiles, you had these disgusting looking deformed smiles, until this last person had like the perfect evil smile on his face as he died. And then the camera zooms to a set of eyes in the dark, in the white top of the head, and he says, "Perfect." And clearly they're laying the foundations, they've opened the doors to bring us the Joker. And so that for me was the end of season 1 of Batman Caped Crusader. I would definitely give this episode a higher rating of I would say a 9 out of 10, just because it was the culmination of a whole season story arc with the shocking and untimely death of Harvey Dent, and the growingness and the growth of the relationship between Alfred, Batman, Barbara, Jim, and Montoya. And it's going to be interesting to see what goes down with Rupert Thorne and, of course, Flask and Bullock, who have now been caught out of being, dirty cops. In all, how would I summon up the entire show? I would definitely say it's a great show. The animation style fits perfectly into the mold of Batman, the animated series from the 1990s. The storytelling, though, for this show, it was different. Like I say, it wasn't episodic. Some episodes were like set in stone standalone episode, but they always had some sort of link in them to what was gonna maneuver and happen later on in the show. And so I did enjoy that. It's a strong start, I would say, for the Caped Crusader. There's a lot of positives in this, but it's no Batman the animated series. As much as I love this, the difference is the other show is a mixture of adult themed episodes and just good old fashioned, cartoon superhero action fun. It had, when it wanted to be serious, it would be serious. When it wanted to do the over top fun episodes, it would do it. With this show, it felt a bit too serious at times. And it is aimed at, I guess, young adults and children. But I just felt they tried to make this a bit too grounded and too gritty. And Batman is a gritty, and it does have that no feel to it. But the episodes, as much as I enjoy them, they weren't as fun if episodes from the original series. And the other thing I've never mentioned up to now is the one thing that set the animated show amazingly apart from this and anything that's come from it is the score, the soundtrack. I didn't enjoy the music throughout the process of this show as much as the amazing music of the original show. Each character, even the Joker, the Penguin, had their own theme song. They had their own music score. So when the Joker entered the screen and you heard that kind of clowny circus type music, you knew who was there. You knew what the episode was going to be about. When the Penguin showed up, you had that aristocratic theme tune, even Harvey Dent, Two-Face had his music. So there are certain things throughout that show that stood out that unfortunately this one does not. And there's elements of this there's elements for me that are missing that would make this an even greater show than it is. Hopefully the next series, if they want to still go down this more serious tone, I have no issue with that, but try and make the episodes, stand out a bit more. Give it a better music score. The voice cast in this is spot on. I love the voice of Batman. Hamish Linklater is fantastic. Alfred Pennyworth, perfect casting, the voice actor for that. The guest stars, Christina Ricci was fantastic in this as Catwoman. A lot of great voice actors in it, but a lot, I would say, for me personally, when it came to Batman the Animated Show, you had a lot of major voice actors. You had Ron Perlman in there at some point. You had Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy. You had lots of well-known actors as well as unknown actors at that time. Maybe season 2, they could bring in some other known voice actors or actors to voice some of the characters in the second season. But maybe, they're stuck to just focusing on making this a damn good show. And it is a good show, but there are some things that are still missing to make it an even better show. But in all, I've enjoyed the experience. It's been a good show to look at and review. So yes, that is Batman the Caped Crusader Season 1. What is your thought on Batman the Caped Crusader? Did you enjoy the show? Did you enjoy, all the episodes? What is your favorite episode? What is, the one episode in the show that stood out? Let me know in the comments below. The next show I will be looking at on Episodic Adventures is the Amazon Prime Gladiator Roman show, Those About to Die, with Anthony Hopkins. And I will be doing that with my good friend DJ Anubis. So until then, keep loving your movies, keep on living all things on television and streaming, keep on loving all things entertainment, and I'll catch you all at the next one.